Welcome back to the Phantom's Lair. This is the Phantom speaking. We're well into it now. We're into February. We're right in the training the house down territory. The SuperCoach pre-season for 2025 is getting serious. On today's show, we're going to take a good hard look, a deeper look at the midfield for 2025. The premiums, the bargains, the mid-price, the cheapies, the rookies, whatever you want to call it, everything in between. And to do that, I am joined by my friends in SuperCoach. Firstly, 5 names, Simeon Kingsley, Thomas Wilson, welcome.
Hello, Phantom. How are you?
I'm good. Good to have you back. And, of course, our man that makes it all happen this year, Phantom Junior, Haydn Doskeny. Hello.
Hello. Thanks for having me again. Keen to talk some midfielders.
Yep. No hipster. 5 names.
No, not after. Yeah, after last week, there was a suggestion that I give him a left right good night.
Yep. Thanks for
in the YouTube comments there. Yeah, we did see that one there.
So, I have thought about it a lot,
but we haven't heard from him or seen him, so could have happened. But thanks. We do like and we do read all your reader comments. So get involved in the show. Hit us up there. Hit us up all over social, and of course, like and subscribe across the Code Sports YouTube channel. If you are listening, get on there and watch the show now. And of course, find this podcast on Apple, Spotify, and wherever you get your podcast. Don't forget to rate us as well. 5 names. Dossie?
Yeah, be good to get some ratings. We've done a lot of shuffling in the off season, plenty of changes to the pod. Lots more podcasts coming out. We've actually got a stack coming your way. So yeah, the ratings and reviews, subscribe, they're all very much appreciated by our team. We can, let the bosses know that we're doing the right thing over here, fans. But make sure
bring back the hipster, kick him off, kick 5 names off.
We can get more tips on what to do with hipster.
Correct. So yeah, leave the comments as well. We love all the interactions. As we said, we've got all our positional previews coming up, starting with the mids, heading into the rucks. We're doing draft rankings as well at the same time.
You're doing draft rankings.
We will be doing the draft show. Drafted. First episode dropped last week, so draft show coming in as well. So we've got Lek Dog on for that. Draft expert if you're into that. So this is purely for classic, and then we'll be talking draft as well.
5 names, giving himself a bit of an out here. What happened to him in the classic season last year? Coming over from that other game, didn't really work out for him. So he's just trying to get in, muscle in on make himself the big SuperCoach draft name of the office, just in case his classic team just doesn't fare well again.
I'm all about this. This is a good pivot.
We do like SuperCoach draft. We might have a SuperCoach draft show later, a live draft, or maybe even the Phantom's Lair draft night too. So stay tuned for that. You mentioned positional pods. They will be out over the next week or so. Our friends in Melbourne, Al Payton and the crew, jumping in for a few as well. But hopefully we're not giving him forwards, Dossie, because we've taken him down on this show last week. He didn't really like it. He hasn't changed his team, though.
Yeah,
Jason Francis, the horny one. You spoke to him yesterday, 5 names.
I did.
Yep. How is he?
He's good. He's a lot of midfield time, I reckon.
Ooh. Did you tell him about Al?
I didn't. We didn't have enough time, but yeah.
Next time.
Next time I'll let him know.
Maybe give him some extra motivation.
If I do that, lock him in.
Just to send some barbs back over the border. Dossie.
Yes.
Midfielders.
Yep.
2025. This is the show. Where are we starting? The top end.
Well, I want to get into a lot of players on this show. So, we've sent a message out on Twitter at the Phantom SC. If you want to follow old Fants on there, he needs a few followers. He's dropped off in recent years. So try and jump back on the train. But we're going to get through lots of listener requests. We're going to talk about the top owned players as well in sort of the premium bracket, the mid prices, a few rookies as well. We'll save, a lot of the rookies for a later pod, but we will touch on some of the highly owned ones. But I just want to talk about off the top of the show structure for midfield this year, because I think it's an interesting point to talk about. We talked with the winner, 2024 winner, Joven, last week. You guys did. I listened in intently, and he was talking the tried and true method that we've seen, Selby do in the past, the GOAT. We've seen him also employ the method of going sort of undervalued, underpriced players throughout every line. I know, Sim, you've talked about doing this as well. I just wonder, this year, what method, if we're going to take this on board again, whether you're looking at going heavy on the premiums with given that we have a few buy rounds early, or whether we're just going mid-price madness. There's so many options. So I'm just keen to gauge the room. I'll start with you, Sim. Like, what's your structure kind of looking like in the midfield at the moment?
Yeah. Well, as always, the name of the game is value, I think. You've got to look at, what people are priced at. I've got, at the moment, I reckon one big dog, like Uber Primo, and the rest you could all say go from 1 to about 3, I reckon about 5 guys that would be, low-end primos to mid-prices, and only 2 rookies at this stage.
Okay.
So I'm doing mid-price madness.
Selby's his idol as well. So he wasn't happy we had Selby on without him.
I'm actually fuming.
So we know where he's got there. Who's your big dog?
At the moment, it's Zach Butters.
Zach Butters, interesting one. We'll get to my structure in a little bit. But our man Dossie over there trying everything he can to try to talk down Zach Butters.
I'm not.
So we'll get to that in a little bit.
Let's talk about him later.
Again, it's always
I've
hard.
said it to you before as well. What are we expecting from Zach Butters this year? But in terms of structure, we know it all depends on what happens with the rookies. At the moment, the crop of cash cows look good. They always look good, I think, this time of year, early Feb. Haven't seen much practice matches yet, official ones anyway. Good in match sim, but not everyone, most. It's easy to look good against your own team,
Yes.
mate. So we want to see them in a competitive hit out and see where they're really at, because we know it's happened before. They've fallen away big time, the crop, and we've got to 2 weeks out of round 1 and we're like, oh no, we're not going to have the 4 or 5 names we thought we were going to have in the midfield. So at the moment, I do have a bit of a balance, is what I sort of tend to go for. A couple of top end, the value just can't ignore. If it's not there, don't pick the value for the sake of the value. But Clayton Oliver, who we'll touch on, James Peatling, we've touched on over the preseason as well. Obvious picks for mine there in the middle part of the midfield, and then it'll just all depend on what happens with those rookies below. Need to shuffle, depending on what happens over the next month or so. I will load up the premiums in midfield if more cash cows or rookies come on in defence or in the forward line. So very fluid at the moment for the Phantom.
All right, it's interesting. Yeah, I can't decide. I keep flipping between having stacks of premiums just to keep it solid in there, going those underpriced value players. So I'm keen to get in and talk about all these players and
have you got Zach Butters?
Figure it out by the end.
Have you got Zach Butters in there yet?
He's been in and out.
Is he in right now?
No.
Ooh.
No.
Why?
I just,
good?
Well, I feel like we've just talked about all the value, and I feel like you have to kind of limit those top end players to be able to fit all the other value players in. And so I think if you're going to go a Bont, can I go a Bont and a Butters and someone else in that 100+ range, or is it too many premiums? You know what I mean? So
yeah, I think always what you're looking for, especially in midfielders, I like to look for is a guy that's going to add 10, 20, however many points, he's actually going to break out. You look for those guys that, have maybe average 99, 100. They're going to go to 110.
Yeah.
Rather than, it is. And a lot of people will, and it is tempting to start with Bont because you know what you're going to get, or Butters or Dacos.
Well, let's talk about all these guys up the top. So we're going to go through some of the top-owned players. Bont, obviously, number one, guys. He's the number one owned premium midfielder in SuperCoach. He's done it multiple times, 120+, 126 average last year. Do we need to speak about the Bont?
No, we don't.
I saw he's got the man bun as well, the top knot.
Yep.
So this could be a vintage Bont season.
If you're new to the game, just pick him, start there.
Yeah, he can replicate this. He might somehow go better. He just does everything on the stat sheet, and especially for SuperCoach, he's clutch, he's contested, he gets involved in score chains. He does everything fancy.
Also, what about Treloar?
Yeah, that's a great point. Yeah, we should touch on that. It's even more relevant for some forward options potentially, but there are certainly maybe another midfielder we'll talk about a little bit later that could benefit as well. But yeah, Treloar going down, he's going to miss what's the time frame on that? It's pretty long. I think it's 8 to 10+ weeks for Treloar now, so he'll miss a significant amount of the remainder of preseason. Then you'd imagine take some time to get into the season. So
he classifies for old man calf.
You don't want old man calf.
Could be an issue, but Bont you're not picking him for value. You just pick him, have him in your team. Don't worry about if he goes up or down in price. He's going to finish the year with, all going well, about the same average.
So next player, Nick Dacos, and he's highly owned. Obviously a massive name in the AFL, the Dacos name. A massive SuperCoach player as well. Started pretty slow last year for his lofty standards. He's now a mid-only as well.
How many teams?
in 35.
That's more than I actually thought he'd be in less.
35% of teams.
Just because of he was no longer a defender.
No longer a defender. Also has a bye round to come. So there's a few players that we'll touch on that, we're not as keen on because they have the bye. So, again, if you're new to SuperCoach or if you've forgotten how it works last year, with opening round, which the AFL introduced last year, there's going to be some extra bye rounds coming in. So bye rounds before, obviously, the mid-season buys, but then opening round does not count for SuperCoach. We start in round 1, meaning some of these players just don't play. They play one less game than other teams. So Nick Dacos is one of those players, fans.
I think, though, if you just want to make it a little bit more simple for yourself, just worry about the round 3 bye. Brisbane, Collingwood, Geelong and Sydney. In rounds 2 and 4, only 2 teams have the bye. We can get away with that flex, best 18 scoring. It's just that round 3 you don't want to load up with too many players. And another one that comes into the same category is Nick Dacos there. Isaac Heaney also has that bye. Was a forward last year. We're really forgetting about him. But if you look at it, take Sam Flanders out. We know defender, midfielder. Of the mid-onlys, 5th highest average last year in the competition. I think he was in the top 10 for overall scores, Isaac Heaney. So you can't get him as a forward anymore, but it always happens. He has a similar year, which I can't see him not. We saw him finally realise that full potential was that hybrid mid-forward with more mid-time, not the other way as we've seen it in the previous years. He could be a big pod. The bye is an issue, again, but we just can't overlook these guys because they're not available as a DPP anymore.
I think the issue is that we talked about at the top, how many of these big premiums can you pay up for? And if you're going to pay up for a big premium, you essentially don't want, especially one of those early buys, like you said, Sydney and Geelong. Some of these big teams have the round 3, so they're playing 2 games. They don't even have a price change, and then they're off.
Yeah, is Heaney value? That's where you're looking. Is he value at his thing, at his price?
I wouldn't say so. Callum Mills moving back into the midfield as well, from all reports, but. Yeah, I don't know. It's a tough one, but that's my opinion. I just probably won't be touching, like a Geelong midfielder, a Brisbane midfielder even. Like Lachie Neale's way up there, Josh Dunkley's way up there, but can I afford to have them, my best, probably one of my top 3 players, missing in round 3 straight off the bat?
The only thing last year, I think I might have started with him, Tom Drink, he had the round 3 bye, but he had North Melbourne and West Coast his first 2 games.
Massive.
So unless if you maybe could you have one? Like you could have maybe one guy who, if you think they're going to score me 130s those 2 first weeks.
Remember Isaac Heaney's first 5 rounds last year, if you include opening round, 144, 136, 128, 148, 165. Peter did that again. Yes, that bye is awkward, but he's big pod.
Yeah, it's great. Pod. It's a great talking point. I think I was more keen to go, given the positional value on someone like a Sam Flanders who, now he's actually out injured himself at the moment. We don't know if he's going to be all right, but save that for the defender pod. But, Flanders was one that I'd be like, they've got a great fixture, Gold Coast, early. Despite missing a game, they could be one, if you're keen on Noah Anderson, maybe that's another option. But let's talk about some of the high-owned players. You keep banging on about him. Zach Butters is the 3rd highest, very uber premium. That's a popular pick in SuperCoach at the moment, fans.
Yep, averages more than he did last year, I think. Obviously, that
120
is a big figure. I think that's his floor, Zach Butters. We know how big he can go, and he made up. He scores less than 3 figures than some of the other big guns that have put together a 120-point season before because his ceiling is so high. So if we get a few more of those high ceiling scores and maybe 5 names, can he temper himself a little bit on the field? I know that's what makes him good. I know Ken loves it. He gets a bit angry, distracts himself a little bit, and he can have a stinker.
Yeah.
Can he get rid of that in his game?
It's all about balance because he's the toughest little guy you'll ever see on a footy field. I've seen him a couple of times this preseason absolutely take out Horn Francis, and I'm like, wow, but yeah, super impressive in his preseason. You always kind of are when he's there. But also look at his start to the season. Collingwood, 80 league points.
Yep,
they're I think, last year they did. Richmond, Adelaide Oval.
He loves playing Richmond.
That could be that could be
175 last year against the Tigers in round 2.
Essendon at Marvel. Essendon maybe could tag, but I don't know. You know,
Bit of a Durham.
Midfield, besides the Durham, the midfield defence, they're not known for that.
Saints, Adelaide Oval, Hawthorn, Adelaide Oval. That's his
Couple
first
of
five.
potential tags, though.
Couple of potential tags, but also there's a couple of games where he could get off the leash.
Yeah.
And we've shown he can make up for if it's a lower score.
And he's found last year was a big learning. I reckon last year was a big learning thing for him because he was getting tagged. He was he had to find ways through it. You know, this is a guy who's just ultra competitive, always wants to win. The other thing is, if a team tags him, then Horn Francis is going to go off. Rosie goes off. Like, can you actually put all your eggs in the Butters basket?
Well, Dossie's certainly not doing that, so...
I don't mind Butters, and the thing, there's been a few stats thrown out there this preseason. You know, Ken Hinkley has traditionally done quite a diverse mix
Here we go.
of midfield minutes. I love my CBAs. CBAs centre bounce attendances.
Can't look past the number.
66% of centre bounce attendances. He was the top attendee out of the midfielders at Port last year, but that is a low number for Port Adelaide, and they tend to go with a mix. If for some reason Ken decides this hasn't worked the last couple of years to take us to the promised land at the very end of the season, do they go a bit of a tighter midfield unit? And does Zach Butters then push towards just midfield constantly, starting in there, finishing in there? And I think, that could be potentially another jump in his scores as well.
Yep.
All right, let's touch on the next player that we want to talk about. There's just a few. I'll bracket these together because they're the final kind of Uber premiums. And if you guys want to talk about each individual one, Caleb Sarong, Tom Green, Andrew Brayshaw, Zach Merritt, and Patrick Cripps are the next Uber premium bracket that coaches are starting with. So at the moment, Sarong's at about 16%, and then it's 10% for Tom Green, 10% for Andy Brayshaw, which has risen quite a bit, and then Merritt just under 10% as well as Cripps. So there are a few players that people are sort of backing in to start the season. I'm quite a big fan of Andy Brayshaw personally.
Fair enough. I was a fan of Sarong. I did take him out because I was just changing stuff around. But yeah, one of those Fremantle players are always, they've got a good start to the season as well, I think.
What are we expecting from Caleb Sarong this year? Natural progression, you'd think. Still only young, 23. I think average 130 in the opening 10 rounds last year. I missed out, didn't start him, couldn't get him, kept getting out of reach. Didn't jump on after the bye, and he fell away a bit, dropped 15 points on his average in the post-bye. A few lower scores. Teams worked him out a little, put a bit more effort into him, let himself down a little bit as well with the footy. Finished off strong, I think 6 SuperCoach tons to finish the year, but 3 of them less than 110, that's what he was doing at the start of the year, putting together big scores, which just scraping over the line for a SuperCoach ton to finish the year, Dossie. 623. Is he a wait and see? That's what he appears for me at the moment, despite all things pointing, you think he gets better given his age.
Yeah, and I think you pointed towards his strong start and sort of a bit of a slower finish. I think you probably look at, as Sim and we've been talking about, targeting players that could potentially raise 5, 10, 15 points in price. Whereas Caleb Sarong's priced at 115, Andy Brayshaw's priced a few points lower there. I think he's at 109 last year, and he finished the opposite. So he started slow, came home like a steam train, averaged like 120 in the back half of the season or something like that. I've got the numbers here. I'll have to get them out. But yeah, I think it's close to 117 in the back half and only 103 from rounds 1 to 12. Whereas Caleb Sarong kind of was a little bit the opposite. As you said, started off 125 rounds 1 to 12 and then finished 106 in the back half. So I think that's just the decision, which way you go. I like both, to be honest. I think Caleb Sarong, he'll figure out the tag. A lot of the superstars do. Zach Merritt, struggled for a little bit there with the tag. Other players have as well. I think Sarong will push through that this year, as you said, still young. Whereas Andy Brayshaw, I just like both of them. I think they'll work together fantastically.
The other thing, especially with midfielders, at the early part of the season, you always find the game's a lot more spread, it's not as congested. So there is, do you look at those guys who can go on the outside, get that outside ball as well as inside?
Yeah, speaking about poor decisions, or not poor decisions, maybe execution. It's been always a little bit of a problem of Andy Brayshaw's, but his kicking efficiency last year, despite winning about the same amount of the footy, his kicking efficiency was the lowest it's been for a while. 54.8% of his kicks found a target or were deemed effective. 58 the year before, 59 the previous year, 64. So it is a 5 or 6 year low for Andy Brayshaw. We know he wasn't coming from a high base anyway, so that's always been my concern with him. We know he makes up for the way he wins the footy, what he does when he's hunting the footy, lets himself down at times. We know he can have 30 touches and still score less than 100.
Well, the thing is, who do Fremantle want the ball? Who do they want kicking the ball?
Yeah, my man.
They want Haydn Young.
Yep.
Haydn Young kicking the ball out of the midfield. So how does that affect Brayshaw? You've got to obviously keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Might not affect him at all. Hayden Young, hamstring.
Yes,
saw that
yes,
today.
yes.
Not
yes. I mean, yeah, if Haydn Young's out,
Yeah.
George Wardlaw had me too. Better quickly get that one off. Had to change my team. All speaking of eggs in the basket, they're all in the George Wardlaw basket. He's gonna miss 12 weeks though. I don't think Haydn Young's quite that bad.
Yeah, there's a few names later on we'll talk about. Zach Merritt. It'll be remiss of us, hipster of the Lair. Massive fan of Zach Merritt. Again, he's probably higher owned than usual to start the season. Usually a pod randomly, despite always going 115. He also has a buy within the early rounds of the season, but yeah, 9% owned. He's obviously a stud. Patrick Cripps, Sam Walsh, potentially, I don't know how he's going to track before the season, so Patrick Cripps could come out like a steam train again off the Brownlow.
Just with Merritt as well, that the round 4 bye with Hawthorn and the Bombers. So you're not, I think you can pick him without really worrying about that.
Now, look, we might have buried the lead here.
What is it?
Mid prices.
Yep.
In the midfield. Wanted to wait a little bit, get those listeners building up for the middle of a pod here. Clayton Oliver.
Yep. Lock him in.
We've talked about him as a lock so far.
451k.
Yeah, unless if he looks terrible in the preseason matches. Unless if you're like, this is bad Clayton, not, the good Clayton kind of thing.
I was interested to hear that Jovan, last year's winner, on the show. You can go back and check that out. Code Sports YouTube now. Spoke very well. Obviously makes sense. Very good SuperCoach mind. Just doesn't need Clayton Oliver to be a keeper at 450. Do you agree?
Yeah, I think so. What's it, 83 average price stat? Even
if he just averages 20 points above that, you can get him to a guy. You get to a guy that's an Uber premium.
She's probably not gone wrong because we think he is going to do more than that. I think he can get close. Maybe not his absolute top line, but he can get close to what he was doing a few years ago. So, yeah, at worst, you trade him after making 100k.
Yep. I think we're all on board. Clayton Oliver, 50% owned, so is most of the SuperCoach community. Here's one, Will Ashcroft. We've talked about early buys. Now, I think that for me factors in much more when you're talking premiums than it does for mid-prices. I'm happy to pay a mid-price bracket for a guy that, he won't, I think he'll have one price change. So he will change his price, I think. I'd have to check the buy there. It's round 3, I think, for Brisbane, isn't it?
Yeah.
Brisbane Lions buy in the round 3 in that hard one.
Yep. So they would have played opening round, which counts towards your first price change. They've got round 1 and round 2. So that three games, he'll get his first price change in. If you're high on Will Ashcroft, you can wait a week, but we get to look at him in opening round.
Yep.
So if he goes big in opening round, I'll be jumping on, and so will most of the comp.
I think it'd be of interest, to see how him, Neil, Dunkley are actually going to, coexist in that midfield. Like we saw, he was incredible in the final series, hard nosed everything, but actually how he's going to go when the stakes aren't that high, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Priced at 82 points per game, we know, because the way he built back from his ACL injury, but from round 22 onwards, including finals, 129, 92, 115, 98, 113, 74, 128, and an average of 107.
That's what you're looking for in those. That's what you're looking for in those.
So I brought him in for Wardlaw. He was my Wardlaw replacement in that mid-price bracket.
That's coming from a guy that's literally just came back from an ACL as well.
Yeah.
Like the fact that he didn't even get, he had a year basically and was straight back in the A. He didn't even play VFL, did he? He just went straight into the ones.
Just went straight back in the midfield.
Straight into the ones, straight into the midfield.
Yep.
He's had a full off season again to get better. Yeah, it's pretty scary. And I haven't had him in my team yet, but maybe
Yeah, I
Maybe I
might have
should.
looked at that too.
Yeah.
What other mid-price value do you have in there? Anyone else?
A favourite of ours, the Lairs, last year, and I think maybe Sim, it was you who brought up this as a pod last year, and we like to call pods pew pew in the Lair, shooting from the hip. Will Day.
Yep.
Very popular pick coming in this year, though. Not a point of difference. 15% at the moment of coaches are keen on Will Day.
Can see why. Like, he's got a SuperCoach game.
Yep.
Priced at 91.
Yep.
Had some monster scores. Had some injury-affected scores too.
He's also, injury affected. Also, the other thing maybe to watch out, he can, I think they've been talking about him like going forward doing that Bont role going forward. Because obviously he's big, but that again, does that help him, clumps a couple of marks, hits a goal.
Yeah, wants to hit the scoreboard more. Wants to be that midfielder that can hit the scoreboard. Hopefully, hopefully it is more pushes forward when the ball's in play rather than stationed there, because that could help him.
Yeah, that's a tough one for me. I think with Will Day, given his potential to play different roles, he's almost like that Jordan Dawson type of player where you don't know where you're going to see him at any given time at any part of the game. I love the way he plays. He's so silky, uses the ball amazing, contested and uncontested. But he might be a guy that I would just wait and see if he's we will get to see him as well in opening rounds. So, if he blows me away in that, I'll be jumping on board. But I think if he doesn't, if he just hits his average, I think I'll be happy to wait on Will Day.
Yep, big watch.
Another player, we'll probably move out of this bracket, but couple of players that have been talked about a bit. Harley Reid.
Oh, yeah.
A few injury concerns. Look, I'm the biggest Harley Reid stan, and he's had that much injury news already. Like, even if it's just niggles, whatever, he hasn't done like a proper full unbroken preseason. I think I would not be going there as a West Coast fan, as a Harley stan. I wouldn't be going there.
Yep, we're not going near the next two either. Adam Chera, Darcy Parish on your list? No. Write them off.
Can I throw up just a way better Blues option? Sam Doherty. That's a bit like 487.
Interesting.
I don't think it's even. Is it? I don't even think he is a shooting from the hip. It's just this guy's coming back. He's like he's going to get so much ball. Like, Carlton have to put him on halfback, and especially early on, like there's points galore to be had.
Yeah, Nick Newman injured. Yeah, was probably looking at more so playing a wing role if he is playing halfback. Yeah, that's a vintage Doc role that we know.
I know he's mid only, but you wait, get the DPP, slot him back there. It's if he's halfback, that's a no brainer, isn't it? I don't know. Like, he's got pedigree, big watch.
They have a good fixture too.
Are we having a pew pew off? I guess still this year. 5 names. 5 names versus the hipster.
We could.
Weekly pod.
I mean, yeah, like
calls.
Do we want to go a pew pew now? The guy that I'm looking at is my M2.
Another one for us. M2.
At the moment.
Doherty, Will Day, who you got?
No, is he mid-pricey? He's a low-end, maybe primo.
Reece, M2.
Jai Newcomb.
Ooh.
Yes. Okay. Yep. I have talked about him on a pod. So clearly.
I think we spoke about him last week. He ended the season like on a hat, like really well. And he's one of those guys there's going to be progression, surely.
Yeah, he fired at the end. I think it was people in the comments, again, we are reading them, I think noticed that we mentioned his massive end, but that was without Will Day, I believe, some of those scores. Even still, I was looking at the numbers, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure I checked the other week, 115 was his SuperCoach average in Hawks wins. So if they are going to, as we probably expect here, rise up the ladder a bit, get a few more wins this year, if he's doing what he did last year and, taking control in those games that Hawthorn have the advantage and are on top,
And
price at 98 as well.
Yeah.
Yep, it's 149, 131 in the final series against the Dogs, and the Power don't count to his SuperCoach average, so that adds to the appeal.
Yep.
I like it. Pew pew.
Very nice. Let's get into some of the cheapies, and this is
a
massive popular pick over here in Adelaide. We are in Adelaide, the Lair. We've got his Guernsey on the wall.
Yep. Again, come in.
New arrival at the Crom this year. Yeah, we might have to get him on the show.
Need the bucket hat
We've got to pull some strings there.
Need a bucket hat.
Ooh, maybe I'll look at a bucket hat. Yeah.
Yes, we've got to get buckets
Get a bucket hat.
We're talking about James Peatling.
Pete Goat.
Yep. All right. Just as I've seen him a lot.
Yep.
And I hadn't had him in because I was like, maybe he's a bit of an awkward price. I don't know. Like, what is he? He's 352. And I was like, is he awkward? Then I went out on Friday. Like, I saw like their full, like on Friday, Crows are doing full blown, tough as you like match sim. And he was tearing it up. And I was like, he's in.
Confirmation.
He's in. Like, we've kind of seen it when they have done stuff. He starts on a wing, but then he goes so quickly on the inside. And he's just got enough of that just early door stuff where he could go really well.
So you think he'll be more of a wing mid, but he'll get enough of that inside time?
It's hard because they are playing against themselves sometimes. We've seen that in match sim. He was just mid, would go forward a little bit. They had Isaac Cumming on the wing. I think that's actually something they're going to look at now. Isaac Cumming on one, Lockie Scholl on the other. Yep. But Peatling's got enough speed, tackling, marking where he should be able to get points.
And he scored well when given the role at the Giants. It's all about the role. If he's in there, lock him in. Yeah. Confirmation there from five names.
Sub plenty of times. Didn't really get a major role until, when injuries happened at the Giants, and then looked fantastic in low time on ground. I think his time on ground last year for his 60-odd average was around like 60%. So can play amazing in good time on ground. You'd hope this year another Adelaide player. We'll get your insights. You just mentioned him before, Sim. So Isaac Cumming.
Yeah.
287,700. So we were worried a bit earlier because he had the early hamstring injury, but he's back training.
He's back training. Like, I think the hamstring's fine. I mean, there's always going to be a bit of a risk with that. I know, because I spoke to Darren Burgess the other day, and he pretty much said because he goes so hard when he trains, like with his running, I get that's why he actually does have these soft tissue injuries. So it's going to be whether you think there's a risk. There's always going to be a risk with him, I think. But is the price good enough? I thought it was. Now I've actually pivoted to Peatling because I don't know how many Crows he can have, especially. And he is going to start on the wing. Like, I know we want to half back. I think he's going to start on the wing.
So he won't be any danger of getting that DPP or, people of defensive status dual position that we saw someone like a Riley Bonner get at probably a similar-ish price last year.
Yeah, at the moment, I say no. But, I mean, we could get to preseason games, anything could change. But like, since he's come back, he's been on the wing a lot. Like, it looks like the Crows are going to have Millera and Laird off halfback. Along with like a Michael Annie, kind of those guys as well.
Could he average 75 for 6 or 7 games? That'll be it. If he gets injured after that, has he done his job? Could be close.
Yeah.
Maybe that's why I've also done my hamstring recently. Just training too hard.
Phenomenal work rate. Phenomenal worker, I think, is what Burgess said. So not sure you're quite up to that level of phrasing yet, Bossy.
I'm just going to touch on a couple of more pods because we like to go deep in the Lair. Cam Guthrie at 3% is the next, popular in that pure mid price or cheapies bracket. And then Ollie Hollins, who apparently in line for, as you mentioned, Doherty in that roll-off halfback. We have seen some footage of Ollie Hollins, 333K, playing in a defensive role. Got some nice matchups early.
Good on the track, yep.
The only issue is we did see a clip appear from Carlton speaking with his brother Elijah for the socials there, and he said he might get him in fantasy but not in SuperCoach due to his efficiency. That is what Elijah Hollins said about Ollie Hollins. So,
well, at least Elijah's helping us out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Wasn't a great kick coming through his draft. Yeah. His hands were and he's running.
Let's talk about some rookie options, and we are going to, obviously, we'll save some for the cheapie, the rookie Bible later in the preseason, but these are some absolute top end names that we're going to be talking about here. 64% owned Jagga Smith. If you're wondering about what rookies to lock into this year, Jagga Smith has to be up there with the number one in your midfield and on-field fans.
Yep, lock him in.
Gun Junior numbers.
Massive
numbers.
But then even playing in the VFL as a kid too. It wasn't just against kids his own age. Dominated against the men last year in his draft year. Huge surprise if he's not there in the Blues' first game.
Yeah, has already spoken about his desire to be there as well. Levi Ashcroft, 53%, so brother of the gun, son of a gun as well. He's 185K. Another guy you can just lock away.
I've got him in the flex position at the moment. Extra cash cow. Still in and out of the rehab group, just recovering, I think, from some shoulder issues over the summer. So just a watch on him to see if they can. Obviously, they don't need to rush him either. So just keep a close eye on him. Just hopefully we do see him during the practice matches, but if not, maybe one for later in the year.
Sid Draper, Sim. You and Hipster were talking about him on our recent predictions podcast when we had your 10 to 15 minute news segment off the top of the show.
I've jumped off him.
Wow.
Still off?
Yeah, I'm still off. Like unless if he tears it up in preseason matches, I'm just not confident he's going to be starting round one, or is he going to be the sub? Like, I don't know.
So, quick recap for those that didn't listen to the last app. Yeah. Like, what's your concerns mainly?
I think there's going to be too many mouths to feed in the Crows midfield, and they do often. I don't know. Like, do they want to make him earn it? Like, he's been kind of managed a little bit, eased through. Like, he's still on track. He's still on track to challenge for round one. I'm just not entirely sure he's going to be there.
Yep.
All right. A couple of other names, and we'll move on because we will touch on these in another podcast. Sam Lawler, number one pick. Maybe we just talk about him. 33% owned. I feel like he's the toughest one. If he's good to go round one, we don't get a look at him in opening round. 203K. I'm traditionally so he will be the most expensive of the draft crop because he was the number one pick. I typically pay up for the number one pick. It's worked in the past few years. Like, unless they're a key position player, he's a midfielder.
Well, we were right.
But when you say midfielder, he's that bigger. But he's also that bigger.
Not an accumulator.
He's like a power. He's like a power athlete. He's like Degoe, Petrarca kind of guy. So yeah, like I actually don't know if he's going to be best option at the Tigers.
I was worried that he might spend too much time forward when they're easing him, but they might have to play him, and he has been in the midfield during match him in the new year. So turning me a little bit, seeing him there.
I think I'd rather. Is it Smiley or Smiley?
He had a hamstring issue though.
Yeah,
so
if he's. I mean,
still a chance to play.
But if they're both there round one and you can only pick one, I'd probably at the moment, without having seen massively, like,
I probably agree.
But also, like, other guys, I mean, not doing there, like Langford, is he?
Harvey Langford. Yeah, he's popular option at the moment. If he's there for Melbourne as well, Finn O'Sullivan for North Melbourne, 14% owned, sounding like he's going to play wing. Let's talk about one or a couple more though. Elijah Sartis has come into the frame recently.
In the rookie Bible, check that out now, codesports.com.au. Intel stats on every cheapie to consider. He's doing a lot right, Elijah Sartis. We know his kicking's been a worry, just getting games been a worry, but by all reports, that has impressed. His kicking, what he's doing with the footy, his decisions he's making, he's just had it on the string too. Being close, to one of the better performers in the A side in the midfield for Essendon during match sim. So, absolute top of the watch list for the practice matches. Hopefully, we can get him in. That's a great price. You know, as a junior ball magnet a few years ago when he came through in the draft. So, if he gets a spot in the midfield, probably have to pick him.
What was his junior scores?
Don't have them right in front of me. I think we went through them on the last show, I think, with Hipster here. We make sure we go through all the junior names junior numbers when Hipster's here. But wait and see now. Doing a lot right. Worked his way into my team. I did have Sid Draper. Good replacement at the moment. Elijah Sartis.
Beautiful. Check out all those numbers on Code Sport for the rookie Bible there. Even Ed, Superstar Allen, who you've mentioned as a superstar, could be an option.
I didn't call him a superstar. Nick Dacos called him a superstar. Speaking of Ed, our man, Bear, where is he? Not a superstar?
Yeah.
Big news coming.
Big Bear raking news in the near future for those that listened last year.
Yeah, at Bear Torres, if you
at
did.
Bear Torres.
Growing following as well.
I know. Listener requests.
Yep.
We've got plenty at the Phantom SC. As I said,
I need more
needs the followers. He's struggling these days. Connor Rosé from Rain Man.
Add me on TikTok as well.
Don't do that. Connor Rosé, Rain Man, your man, fans. What do you think of Rosé this year? A lot being talked about Butters, Horn Francis. What about Connor Rosé?
Good price. Hipster likes him. Spoke about him, I think, at length. 529K. As you said, what he averaged last year? Under 198 points per game. Can go big. We've seen it, but obviously some lower scores, some injury scores affected that final number. But I'm not picking him ahead of Zach Butters. Have to have Horn Francis. I'm not picking 3 of them. So I still think you're better off dropping down to your Clayton Olivers, James Peatlings, Will Ashcrofts. If you're not going to go in the top end, if you're coming down to 500k, I'd keep going.
Ed Richards from Geordie DeSena, who was on the podcast earlier in the preseason, and Grant. So a couple of people are keen on Ed Richards. Adam Treloar.
Hips is going to be angry.
Yeah, so Adam Treloar out. I think this has made it, people were already keen on him regardless of what's happening with Treloar, just because he moved into the midfield last year, Ed Richards, at times. It was mainly when Libba was out, I think, but, showed some massive signs in his first year, priced at 98, and that was, essentially his first year playing as a midfielder. Yeah. Didn't spend all the time in there, was sort of in and out based on personnel, with Adam Treloar looking to miss a bit of time.
No Jack McRae as well.
No Jack McRae. Bailey Smith obviously not returning. He wasn't there last year. A few faces missing from the Dogs, but yeah, Treloar's probably the big one to just get a chance to rack up some disposal sim. You a fan?
Yep.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Ed Richards. Will Day, we've talked about. Thanks for the request, though. Jordan Dawson, how's he been looking at training sim? That one's from Jacob.
Looking good. Like, he just kind of goes about it in his Dawson way, like, kind of thing. I think it just comes down to how many throws do you want, and also it's hard to know what his role is going to be. I imagine he's going to play midfield, but yeah.
Do you think the more mouths to feed now, the stronger midfield does actually hurt Dawson this season?
Nix can use him.
Yeah, Nix has shown he will use him wherever he can. If it's defense, forward, like on. Yeah, so yeah, I think there's a lot of play and there's a lot more value in the Crows midfield that I'd like to look at.
He's paying a tough one. He's paying Paul without robbing Peter now.
Yeah,
it's just 100.
Oh, he is.
Okay.
But unless if Dawson...
Maybe.
I think he could be an upgrade target throughout the year if he's absolutely, like, killing it. But, yeah, like, there's... So, Crows midfield's going to... Who are you going to have there? Rankin, Peatling, Crouch, Saligo, Dawson. You don't have other guys that roll in there as well. Like,
isn't Dawson the A side of that, though? I would have thought.
He starts in there, but then he starts in the centre bounces, but then he might sort of sit behind the ball a little bit. It's
one to watch. One to watch.
See what they do.
Just down 10 points from the year before, but as we said, they've got a lot more help now. So yeah, maybe I
don't think you stay that low.
Every time I put him in my team, he's been in and out so many times. Every time I put it in there, it just doesn't quite feel right.
You improve on last year, but wait and see.
Errol Goulden from Dino or Dino. Why aren't we talking about Errol? I think those buys again.
Yep,
maybe.
And disgusting finish to the year as well.
But
80, 84, 118, 97, 112, 75 in the stinker of a grand final.
It started slow though, and then he had a massive hot patch in the middle where if you didn't have him, he got away from you pretty quickly.
He also has loads of time on ground, so you don't have to worry. Hits well, can win a lot of the ball. So, like, in theory, like, it's amazing. When it all goes together, he's amazing.
And still young.
Still young. Like, I know, I think if you want a little bit of something different, and if you really like Errol, start with Errol. Like, don't worry about the buy. He's not,
I'd start with Heaney over Errol if I was picking a Swan.
Okay.
But look at Errol post-buy into upgrade so you can see how he's tracking.
Rory Laird from Reece and Matthew, another Adelaide player. It's almost like they know where the Laird's recorded is.
Maybe post round 6.
Upgrade target.
If he gets...
He'll get DPP.
Yeah, Reece says, is he an option playing half back? So, I guess you're presuming that he'll hopefully get defensive.
He's playing half back.
Okay. Patrick Cripps from Cotsey. We sort of mentioned he's fairly popular, but what do you reckon about the Brownlow medalist fans?
We sort of...
3 votes.
He gets overlooked a little bit, doesn't he? Starting Supercoach every year, but can score as well as any big pod. Just can't put him ahead of some of those other guys to start with. Not against him, but I'm not... Yeah, it's a hard one. And I don't think, you come out, you probably score well. He will score well in the practice matches. He will score well in the opening few rounds.
They have a really good fit. I wouldn't be surprised if he dominates early as well. And 109, usually coming off a Brownlow, there's kind of like the don't pick one of my old colleagues at the Draft Doctors used to say, never pick a guy coming off a Brownlow because it's generally your career season. But Cripps only averaged 109, which he's actually done multiple times better than that before. So I don't know. It might be one of the outliers where he can actually improve on his Brownlow season Supercoach output.
And that round 1 game against Richmond, he'd be starting the season so
I like him. Josh Dunkley from Corey. Fans, any interest? He was another guy that dominated towards the back end of last year.
Under the radar, again, ever since, he's been under the radar a little bit ever since he wasn't a forward in Supercoach. One of those guys we stopped picking because he wasn't DPP. Kept getting the job done, 112, 602K. If you're picking a line, though, you just spend a little bit extra to get Lockie Neal.
Tim Taranto from Engo. Sim.
I think he's going to get a lot of the ball. Like, he's going to get loads of the ball this year. But I don't...
Who's he going to kick it to?
Yeah. Also, he's not...
The opposition.
Yeah. No, that's the thing.
That's what I meant.
Yeah. I think he's just not going to be as efficient as you want. Like...
Yep.
You don't look at his stats, you don't be like, wow, he's getting so much of the pill. But it's just, he's probably going to turn it over about.
I don't think he's quite cheap enough
to
make up for that.
Do love my Timmy T. Sorry about that blasphemy before Timmy T. I do love my Timmy T. Okay, Jordan, Jai Newcomb was requested by 2 people, so we've spoken about how we really like that option, especially Sim. Mitch Nevitt, so just as a rookie priced option, Sundog. Now, Dan Batten was on the show talking him up earlier in the preseason when we were talking a couple of rookie price options fans. Mitch Nevitt.
Yep, from Geelong, we know he's a tall midfielder. Dan Batten, one of his favourites. You can see it on the Rookie Bible, of course, on codesports.com.au. Batten, we know, talks about, he referenced Patrick Dangerfield, superstar, and we know he's a good spotter of talent. We know he talked up Max Holmes, and we've seen what Max Holmes has done. He's talked up Mitch Nevitt this preseason as an inside midfield option. 224 Supercoach points to finish the VFL season for Mitch Nevitt.
200.
So, tall, wins the footy, came through as from his draft year. Some good contested ball numbers. So,
what were the numbers in the juniors, Tilla?
20. No, that's his. Sorry, this is what he had. I'm just 5 names. We'll get to that shortly. But in that final VFL game, 38 touches, 23 contested possessions, 13 clearances, 10 tackles, 224 points. 4 games last season, but was sub affected and had a 0 as well. Sub affected 0 count toward his average, so it's helping his Supercoach price for this year. He could be one that could really push up the rookie rankings in the practice games. If he comes out, starts in that midfield like Patrick Dangerfield is predicting, he could save us 40 to 50K on that top end, really make his way in.
All right, Mitch Nevitt, one to keep on your radars. And finally, a guy that burned so many people last year, but started on fire.
I can see who you're looking at.
Talking about players in Geelong, this has been rumoured. Matt Rao, current son. People are wondering about him. Hang on, who did request that exactly? I'll get that up. It was Paris who requested Matty Rao, priced at 102. If he has a monster outing in opening round, he's 102. If he gets a 130, the one thing I will point out, and I think it's round 1, correct me if I'm mistaken, but because they have the round 2 bye.
They do.
So they only play one actual game in Supercoach before having a bye.
No, they've got round 3 bye.
So round 3. So they play 2 games. So he will have a price change.
No, it's round 2.
No, round 2, yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I did the wrong thing. My bad.
It's all right. Round 2 bye, won't have a price change, but we'll have a game against West Coast in round 1, which, if you look at his history against West Coast, it is insane. So 5 of his top ranked games, 3 are against West Coast. So 3 of his top Supercoach scores are against West Coast. 172, 165, and 157 are his 3 of his 5 top scores, all against West Coast. So, look, if you want to point a difference in round 1.
No, I love that.
It's a 1 week play, but could be right.
Also, the other thing is with Matty Rao, also with him is he starts the season off well because his game is so contested. And then eventually, like when he starts to tire a little bit more, that's when the game goes down a little bit. Like Start of the season, he's just like he's doing like 12 tackles a game, you know, he's just, yeah.
The other thing is if Flanders, you know, depending on if his health as well, could just be more peel up for grabs. But anyway, I think we'll finish up on Matt Rao there. We talked about a lot of midfielders, fans, but one thing for the YouTube channel, people are wondering, the Phantom.
Mm-hmm.
He's you know, mysterious figure on the YouTube channel. You can watch our beautiful faces on YouTube Code Sports. A few comments about the Fant's look on here. Describe the look for those just listening.
No comment. If you're not listening, if you're not watching, start watching.
He's the Phantom, the mysterious Phantom. So there you go.
Yep, no comment.
No comment. We'll wrap it up
Keep
there
the
then.
intrigue.
Plenty of positions coming your way. We're still going to go through every single other one in the next couple of weeks. We've got draft rankings coming your way as well, and we'll stick to the theme. We'll go with midfielder draft ranks. We've got draft expert Lek Dog on the show to help out there. We'll be going through those to keep your SuperCoach draft rankings in order.
Yep, good performance from 5 names. Looking pretty comfortable there with a bit more room on the chair. So we'll have to just let Hipster know that his position could be in doubt. 5 names, some good intel, good pew-pew as well. So good show, plenty more to come. Follow us across all channels and read everything as well, codesports.com.au. Everything and more is up there. It's February. It's almost time for footy. We'll see you next time.
See you later.
See ya.